but I'll just have a sip of coffee and then we'll start chatting.
All right, perfect. The coffee looks. You're drinking coffee at 8 p.m.
Yeah, well, it's been a long day. I've had a lot of meetings today, so
Okay.
what,
I had coffee at 8 p.m. I would be up until like 6 in the morning,
yeah,
ready for the next day.
I'm the same, and I should probably look after myself a little bit better. I should.
Or you'll have a
I,
really big night and then a
yeah,
low, sleepy day tomorrow.
that's it. Well, I'm a creative. I'm self-employed, so I don't like sticking too much to a work structure of like 9 to 5. So I quite enjoy doing stuff through the night. So,
Oh my
but
gosh,
but
I
but
can't. I like cannot. Like after to 9:30, my brain is just. But I wake
is
up
is
quite
that where you're
early.
done?
Yeah, yeah. But I could get up at like 5:30, and be super creative first thing in the morning.
Mm.
But oh my gosh, like in the other direction, like if someone wanted me to do something creative at 11 p.m., I think I would just like fall over. I'd have no idea what to do. Like my brain's
Well,
not working then.
we're all different, aren't we?
Hmm.
We're all different. And I guess like it's taken me a little while, but I think at this point I've worked out what's best for me and
Yeah.
how I do it. But then occasionally, you're right. I shouldn't be drinking coffee at 8 o'clock at night.
You should be doing whatever you want to be doing to satisfy your creative spirit, but
I,
also I
I
couldn't do it.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Christina. So let's get into your show because I'm so curious about the title of your show. I almost died for this. I
Hmm.
just wanted I'm like what instantly I'm like what happened there?
Yeah, so fair. It's a very apt show name. I almost died. So about 6 years ago, I was kite surfing in Brooklyn, just right outside of Manhattan. And I had been kite surfing for a number of years, like really trying to learn it and become good at it. And I thought it was just like the most awesome sport in the world. Like so freeing and so beautiful. And you're like so a participant in nature and you're skimming along the waves and you're like essentially being held up by the wind. And I had a terrible accident. And I had a moment where I got picked up, not towards the ocean, but towards the highway, and taken about 30 feet up in the air and going closer and closer and closer to the highway. And I realized that I was going to either crash on the highway, and it's a busy highway, probably have some like a 30-car pileup,
Mhm.
or I could maybe try and make it over the highway, but I wasn't comfortable enough that I knew what I was doing. Or I could decide to crash. And if I decided to crash, I was just going to let go of the kite from 30 feet, which is, a three
Mhm.
and a half story high house. And I was probably going to die. And I had to make that whole decision about what to do, in 1-2 seconds of my life. And I fell onto my head. And I woke up still on the beach. And after that, I spent a number of years suffering from a traumatic brain injury. But I didn't almost die because of kite surfing. I
Okay.
almost died because earlier that day, I went to a beach and I thought this man, who I thought was my soulmate, was going to meet me. And he never showed up. And I was so angry and broken up and sort of heartbroken over all of that I took all of those emotions and I brought them to kite surfing. And I really almost died because of all of the things that led me to that way I feel about that man. And so the
Wow.
show is about the fall, it's about the brain injury, it's about meeting the soulmate. But what it really is about at this big level is all of these rules and ideas you are taught about love and how to be a woman and how to be a good girl, a good person in this world that so dictated my life that I almost died because I was so beholden to trying to be the perfect person that this soulmate would fall for in this very specific version of a love story that I had been spoon fed since I was a child. And so that's really at the crux of the show.
Wow. Like, before we get into the show itself, but for you personally, I wonder if big moments like this happen in your life because they have to happen.
Oh.
Did you
Yeah.
have to go through this?
So I'm such a believer in this idea is that like you get sick in the way you have to, or you have the injury that you have to have, or like something was almost always going to, like, I was almost always going to wind up in this situation. You know, I was just on this trajectory that like something had to happen to stop. Like I had to stop. And I
You had to
had
break the
to,
cycle. You had this cycle. Did you have a
yes,
cycle of repeat?
and I had to be so broken by it that I had to examine it, you know? And the process of coming out of that, out of the whole accident, the whole injury has been enormously transformative as a person, right? Like even to doing the show was like a big part of that transformation. And yeah, I wish it didn't happen because it was painful, and there was many years in which I suffered from having the impacts of having a brain injury.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not disappointed that it did. I am so much happier and so much more myself. I'm so much more free than I ever was before the injury that like, yeah, I I do believe that it I do believe that I needed something. I wish I had listened to the somethings before that happened. And I guess that's is part of the reason for the show, right? It's like I went through this, like, oh my gosh, like all of the other people who are trying so hard to live up to these ideals are all kind of headed on this pathway. And I want to be like, hey, I almost died for this. So like you don't have to, you know,
Wow.
and that
And
that's part
isn't that
of it
what
all.
storytelling is at its core? Isn't
Yeah.
that what we do with storytelling? We give warnings, don't we, to each
Yes.
other? We sit around, you know, if we go back to the beginning of us as human beings, we sat around a campfire and we said, don't go into those woods because this is what happened to me when I went in
Yeah.
there. There was a wolf in there
There
and it
was
was
a
very
wolf in
dangerous.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, and I
And
think that's like ultimately how I feel about I believed all these very dangerous things. These things that like constricted me and constricted me and constricted me so much to the point that like I almost died. And I see it to all of these other people around me, men and women who are, you know, so trying to live up to who they're supposed to be and have these romantic relationships that are described in this very specific way. And so we're all kind of twisting ourselves up in knots to live like that. And that's the big bad wolf in the woods, right? Like we don't have to be doing that. And those expectations are so harmful, I think, to our ability to live this very and much more genuine sort of experience of, or at least much more human or much more personal. Like we all have these very personal journeys, right? And I didn't allow myself to be my person. I just tried to be who everyone else, you know, wanted me to be, which I think is such a large cultural problem. So,
it is. But you know, I think in some of these core things that we do in storytelling, that whilst we give warnings from our journey, we kind of have the opportunity to lay out a roadmap for others. We have that opportunity for others to go, this is how you could avoid the woods. This is a different
yes, just
way.
don't do it.
This,
Like,
this is yeah. This is there
yeah,
is an opportunity to take a different route here,
yeah,
and
that.
you know that's something quite special that we can offer each other.
Yeah, I think that's so true. There's one of the things that really encouraged me to do this show was I read this book called The Sparrow, which like came out maybe 25 or 30 years ago. It's a science fiction book about a Jesuit priest who goes to an alien planet. But it's great. I recommend it.
That sounds like exactly my type of book.
Okay, it's actually like lovely. It's like a little slow in the middle, but it's
Mhm.
really worthwhile. And at the end, it's quite shocking. But there's this scene towards the end, and I don't think I'm ruining the story, so but forget it. By the time you go to read the book,
Spoiler warnings right now.
spoiler alert, is that the main character is this Jesuit priest, and that these other priests are kind of pushing him to tell what happened when he was on the planet. and he doesn't want to. He just like was so traumatized by it. And this priest keeps pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. And the other priest said, "What are you doing? You're going to break this man." And the head priest, you can tell I'm not Catholic because I'm sure they all had like names of archbishops and things, but I don't know exactly what they are. He said, "If you are a painter, you have to paint your feelings. If you are a writer, you have to write them down. But if you are a storyteller, you have to speak your story, and other people have to listen." And I really cried when I read that because I am also a painter and a writer, and none of those mediums felt like a way to truly express what I had been through. And I realized so much of what I wanted to do was have a conversation with the audience. I wanted to speak my story, and I wanted them to listen. But I wanted them to listen because I wanted to truly have that sort of conversational exchange, that dialogue, that experience that can only come from storytelling. And it was really only after I had done the show for the first time, the first night, but then progressively after that, that I was able to take the story out of like living inside my body. And now it like lives out here. Like I don't feel totally detached from the story. And I hope I never am because it was truly very transformative for me, but it's able to live in a different place. And I think that's a thing about storytelling that is also so true for storytellers, right? Is like, sometimes you need to take it out of your body and put it someplace else. And sometimes that means handing it to lots of other people, right? Your audience and those little, like they all are little pieces of the story now. And sometimes it's just like putting it sort of on a shelf or someplace else where you can go back into it as you need to, but it doesn't need to be inside of you anymore. And I just thought that idea is something so worth embracing as a storyteller, right? It's like you need to tell your story and you need people to listen. And it's the duality of that experience, which is why I think it matters so much that, you have an audience. If I just tell my story to myself, it doesn't matter. I need to feel the conversation of having it with other people.
Yeah, what you're saying to me resonates with me so deeply. This sharing our story, this connection, and this therapy through art.
Mm,
You've treated yourself. You've looked after yourself
mm.
through your creative pursuit here. You've found some. This is what it sounds like to me, that you've found some healing in creativity.
Yeah, and I want to be clear that I don't think the show is sort of trauma dumping on people, like it's very funny
Of
but I
course.
think part of making your story to the point so that it is consumable by an audience, right, is sort of an alchemy to it, right? Is actually being able to take the painful thing that happened,
Hmm.
transmute it, find the lesson, find the roadmap, right, that we were talking about, and then take it out to other people. I think there's something very terrible in storytellers who haven't processed their story enough to share it with people. Like I'm sure you have been to a show or two where you're
Yeah.
sort of like, "Oh, I don't know if you were ready to tell that story to me." But and I know that's also part of the process, right? It's like we are all going through the journey of getting our story to the most polished shape it can be. But I think I knew that the story was ready when I couldn't dig any deeper into the story. When I was just like, this is as true as the truth is here, and there are no more layers and no more complexity. And maybe that too is true of that sort of creativity as therapy, is the fact that like when I was done with the digging was when it was time for the presenting, right? And so maybe I made it through sort of the therapeutic um, arc
It's
of
a it's
the
a
journey.
really hard place to know when you're done, I guess. I guess
Mm.
especially if you're on a pursuit of doing a solo show. When you're on that pursuit of this is something that you're doing on your own. There's no outside influence necessarily coming in. Did you have anything there to help guide you
Yes.
in that knowing?
Yeah, so I actually took a class with Matt Hoverman, who runs this program called Go Solo. I think his website's called Go Solo, and he does a lot of storytelling workshops with solo show writers, and that was incredible. And then I have been working with the director, Patrick Lillis, who is amazing. He mostly directs solo shows. And he was the one actually who really pushed me to connect the story to a larger, like, structural narrative. So in a way, my show is about the patriarchy. But the patriarchy is only a word I use once at the very end. And I still sort of am uncomfortable with describing the show that way because I'm not a feminist in the way that when you say, "Oh, my show is about the patriarchy," you're expecting like a show about feminism, although I really believe in women and I believe in what we can do and all of these things, but I like wasn't comfortable with that language. And so they were both really interesting. It's both interesting that they're both men. And so I think they were also able to see my show from sort of a different perspective than I was living it and experiencing it. And so they were that was both of those things, both of those people were extremely important in the development of the show. And I mean, I don't think I could have put on this show without them. Certainly not a show that I feel like I could, really like,
Give out there and share to the rest.
yeah, like there was a version of the show that I first started before I ever took Matt's class, and I'm just really glad that I didn't pursue that too
Okay.
far. So I think
What
for
was
me
it? What was it
finding
about
people.
that? What was it about that story that didn't need to go any further then?
Well, it was a version of this story, but I think it was still a version where I probably was still the victim in this story. Someone said something to me really interesting, which is that this woman, Julia, she runs a storytelling open mic night in the West Village on Monday nights. And she said, well, can I swear on your, can I swear?
Yeah, we gave the warning.
Okay, okay. And
That
she
was
said,
the warning.
and she said, comedy is a fuck you, and storytelling is fuck me. And I think in the version of the show that I had before I worked with Matt and Patrick, I was very much poor me, and not so much like fuck me. Like I can't believe I couldn't see myself for all the insanity of what I had been, the way I had been twisting myself to get through the story. And instead it was more like, oh, all of these terrible things have happened to me. Wow. And I think that transition from victim to, gosh, I can't believe I did all of that, is what allowed this story to be something that people can really connect to, because I think many people sort of I think it's maybe hard for us to see how the kind of crazy machinations that we put ourselves through. But when we see someone who's done sort of crazy things, then we can see, well, I didn't do anything as bad as she did, but
Yes.
oh, maybe I have a couple of things along the way. Like it's sort of like reality TV, right? Like you watch reality TV. I don't really watch reality TV, but when I do watch reality TV, you're always like, oh gosh, those people's lives are terrible. Thank God I'm not like that. But you do investigate your connection to their sort of wild antics. So
I guess what you're touching on there is the vulnerability that we offer when we're being creative
it's a
and when
much
we're
better way to say
pursuing
it.
something. Yeah, no, I'm just picking up on what you're saying
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah,
It's that when we give that vulnerability out to the world, we need to do that at a point when we're ready to do that, not when we're still healing, when we're still
yeah.
processing it all, because that's when we'll give that performance that, like you said, I've been to shows where I've been a bit cringe, and it's
Yeah.
been a bit of a hard watch as being an audience member, because
Yeah.
that person is still struggling, and so you don't look at that person and go, you don't consider the story. You just start to feel sorry for them, and so
Mm-hmm.
and there is nothing that you can do in that space as an audience member, and yeah, you need to find a place of vulnerability where you can offer it to the audience so that it can be authentic and you can engage with each other, but not to the point where you could be potentially doing yourself harm, as what happens with reality TV. We often see
Yes.
with reality TV,
Yes,
those
exactly.
people go into a place of harm because they're not actually ready to share at that point.
No, and I mean to be captured, like, I mean, if I look back at the stories I tell, it's sort of about this like 18-month, 2 year period of my life, right? If that was all being videotaped, like,
Mm,
it would be so much more uncomfortable and different. But now I can look back at it and I can tell you with this sort of, self-sacrificing view of like how I went to the Democratic Republic of the Congo after my brain injury and hiked the most dangerous volcano in the world just because I wanted to feel alive, And it's like,
yeah.
that's crazy. Like, and I'm able to see that now. But in that moment, I was just so struggling for
Mm,
anything that would make me feel like maybe I would sometime get better, that I went to like literally a country where the State Department is like, you should write your will before you go. They had an Ebola outbreak and like the rebel uprising, like in the 3 months before I went, and I
mhm.
think I can now be vulnerable with that because I have gotten to a place where I feel so much more comfortable with who I am. But even like 3 or 4 years ago, I would have been like, no, it was kind of cool. Like, wasn't that kind of cool? That was totally fine, right? Because that was fine. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, like someone should have taken my hand and like
Mhm.
brought me home and just been like, you rest in this bed for a while. But if they had said that, then I probably wouldn't have done all the things that led to recovery. So, it's a tough
That's what
journey.
I was going to say. Would you have necessarily listened if someone had
No,
said
oh,
stop
I
at that point?
wouldn't. I
You
wouldn't.
know,
I
and
even knew I knew that my mind wasn't right, but
mhm,
I so wanted to be well. And I think that is part of the tension. And anytime you're sort of struggling or you're sick or I mean, the hard thing about having a brain injury is that the part of your body that tells you everything is okay is no longer functioning, right?
mm,
And so you have no center ground to rely on. You don't have this sense of, you don't know what's normal or what's good or what's well. And so I just kept going for those things that I thought would make me feel better. And I have a much better solo show story now because of it. If I hadn't done it, I probably wouldn't go to Fringe. So, um, and I sometimes I think we need to do hard things to remember that we're alive.
mm,
I think I do. I don't know if everyone does,
mm.
but I need to
No, it's
sometimes feel
yeah,
alive.
well, that's what we said at the beginning of this conversation, that maybe we have to go through these things. I know I've definitely gone through moments that have changed me. I've definitely gone through, I had uh, a, a, a near-death experience at one point,
Mm,
very early on in my life. I had a car crash when I was young,
I'm
and then I had
sorry.
another near-death experience later on, a couple of years ago, and those they were very significant moments for me to analyze. They were definitely significant moments for me to like almost put full stop on that chapter and go, right, now what does the next chapter look like? And it was
Yeah.
my choice if it looked exactly the same, but there was also an opportunity for it to look different.
Did you have a big change?
Massively,
Yeah.
massively. When I touched on the car crash when I was younger, that one for me was not so much, other than I guess it was kind of being a little bit more cautious of the world at that point, of a young teenager. But the one that happened a few years ago, massively. And some people might laugh at me calling it a near-death experience, but I I took too many drugs that I shouldn't have taken.
Mm-hmm.
By accident, I didn't
Oh,
know what I didn't know what I was doing, and it sent me to a very bad place. Um, but coming out of that, it gave me the opportunity to restart everything and start everything afresh. And in some ways, I feel like my brain got rewired when that
Oh,
happened.
so I've done a huge amount of research now about
Mhm.
sort of brain health and neurocognitive situations and all of those things. And like, yes, your brain does get rewired, right? And you
Mm.
start to learn different things and you start to make new patterns and you start to have new experiences that change actually fundamentally who you are and how you think about the world. And I think those experiences that force that rewiring, they're some of the most human moments we can possibly have, right? And I think a lot of near death moments relate to some sort of addiction, right? Or, and like I was kind of addicted to the idea of love and sort of like being in love, and I kept seeking it out with
Mm.
terrible people. And, it was a cycle and it was a cycle and it was a cycle. And I had multiple moments, multiple near death moments before this moment where I really should have died, like I should have died. And it took me almost 4 years to be able to say that about that moment. Like I didn't want to believe that I had almost died. And I think
Mm.
that's particularly, especially with people who struggle with drug and alcohol addiction, particularly, it's really hard, I think, to admit that to ourselves, right? Like it was really hard for me to admit that I was like so
Mm.
addicted to being in love or
Because it
feeling love
almost
that I
sounds,
went,
when you're in it, it sounds and feels shameful,
oh,
doesn't it?
totally. But also it
So
feels kind of extreme where you're like, well, I didn't
mm,
die. I mean, it really wasn't that bad, right? Like I kind of
yeah,
think that was my take on it. It was like, oh, I mean, I was, I got this brain injury, but like I didn't really almost die. And then you're like, no, actually, I did almost die. I was just really
mm,
lucky, right? And it sort of sounds like in your situation, particularly if you took all those drugs by accident, you were really lucky,
yeah.
And like that's also a hard thing to accept is having been really lucky at
And
one
I think
moment.
I think I was really lucky for my brain to be rewired as well. Or
Mm-hmm.
I had so my situation was that I almost was obsessed with the fear of death before that
Mm-hmm.
night, and it was chasing me and it was following me everywhere I went. I was my wife had cancer for the fourth time, and I was
Oh,
constantly caring for her, and I had two young children, and my dog was very ill, and I knew he was on the way out, and it was this constant thing that every day death was following me around,
mm,
and not for one moment was I appreciating life. Was I
mm,
going, how wonderful all this that everyone is actually here right now?
yeah,
I was so fixated on this future that my wife's no longer going to be here, my dog's no longer going to be here, and oh my God, my children are going to die one day. Like it was a loop in my mind,
yeah,
that horrible thing, and that night that I it 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 put a stop on that. I never recommend drugs to anyone. That's not what I'm doing here.
mm,
But there was something within that opened something up for me and take me to that extreme of, that night I considered suicide that night.
mm,
And to literally push myself to that moment of staring death in the face and going, do we want to go here?
yeah,
And then the return afterwards was no. I actually want to be here and be part of this and
yeah,
enjoy this. And the world has opened up for me since. I
yeah,
wouldn't be here speaking to you right now if it wasn't for that night.
yeah, yeah.
You
I
know.
think that's so powerful. And I think very similarly in that moment where I chose to release my kite and fall to the ground, I think I deserved to die. Like I felt like I hadn't done the things for this person, your soulmate, like to love,
Mm,
like this person who was supposed to love you above all things. And I think I thought I deserved it. right? Like, of course, this is how it ends. Like, I'm not a good enough human for this person. And and I'm so glad that that is like not the way I see the world. That what came out of that whole process was an understanding that I am good enough, like I am
Mm.
enough, and the freedom that has come from that feeling of being like, I am enough in whatever I do, anything at all, however I approach the world, I am enough. And I think so few of us are really taught or told that, right? And that,
Mm.
you get to those moments and you have a beautiful chance to find your way to a more beautiful way of living. And that like in a way that is a gift. And that is like why we have to use these, I think, these creative gifts then to tell the story. Like I didn't want to be a professional storyteller, like that wasn't sort of
Mm.
what my career journey was, but I feel like I have to. Like I have learned
Mhm.
this thing that is so important that
Yes.
like now I have to tell this story. And so maybe
This
a gift and a
conversation is
responsibility.
this is really important for me at this moment. Like it often blows my mind when I have these conversations, and it it means a lot to me because I've picked up the pen and paper today and
Oh,
started writing my story from
great. Awesome.
that night. And
Great.
and because I feel like yourself that I am I am okay from that journey now. I'm not still going through that dark space.
Mm.
That was another version of me. Everything you've said to me today goes, yes, you're doing the right thing to start sharing this story. You're at the right place now to
Yeah.
continue writing this. So
Are you going to put it all together? Are you going to take it to Fringe? What are you going to,
I
no
don't
pressure, but.
I don't because it's I see this story at the moment as a book.
Mm,
I see it starting there because it is transcendental.
mm,
It does go to different realms of existence, um, and I'm not. I don't feel like it's. I feel like I do share it. Okay, I go to those other. I talk about those other realms occasionally on the podcast, and I do
mm,
share from time to time. But there's a story from that night that could last 100 years,
yeah.
and so I feel like it's a book right now. Something
I
saying
think
to
this
me it's a book.
question is so interesting. I think, listen to what it's saying, right? But I think this show I started out wanting to do in memoir because I'm a
Mhm.
writer first and foremost, 1,100%. I had no aspiration to be a performer in any sense. Um, but I couldn't stick the ending in the book form.
Mm.
I got about 90% of the way through and I just couldn't find my way there. And I tried it in a few different iterations. And ultimately, I think it goes back to what I said about the sparrow. Like it was a story that I had to put voice to, that it wasn't enough to sort of wrap it up in a package and give it to other people, a book. You don't ever have the experience of them
Mhm.
responding back to you and what you're doing and talking about and saying. You don't get like the laughter or, there's this one moment in the show where everyone just gasps. And like that gasp is so
Yeah.
validating.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I hope you enjoy the process of writing. And also, I mean, I think ideas have shapes, right? And they have
They
forms,
do,
and they
yes,
have
yeah.
forms that are best for them. Um,
Mhm.
and the speaker, but it is pretty wonderful experience, I think, to tell the story.
Yeah, and I'm a strong believer that these ideas start off as a seed, and we I often talk about creativity being a garden that we care
Mm,
for, and that we plant seeds and we water them, and we don't know what they're going to grow into.
yes.
But and that at this moment, this story is a seed of an idea. I
Well, and it
just have to
starts
keep
somewhere.
watering it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
It's
and and as I go to the Fringe this year, as I come to see your show, I'm
oh,
sure I'm going
please.
to be inspired by what you do. I've been inspired by this conversation, but I think something more magical happens within the theatre space.
Oh,
Where,
I
where
mean, I'm
you
kind
know,
of obsessed with that. Yeah, I have been working with
Mhm.
someone about taking the show. and selling it as film. A producer he's I don't really know how those things work. He's doing those things. And it's so interesting because I think there is a special thing in the theater, right? That is like, it is one of the few places you are like in conversation with the creator, but the audience has this extraordinarily powerful role. Like, so I've made film and television. We made a television pilot. We screened it at a bunch of things. And is the creator of that pilot, you have such distance from the material that's then being shown to the audience, right? Whereas in the theater, you are there presenting the material, like in your physical body form, to people who are reacting to it in such a human way. Like, and you know, there's just so few moments where you have that true creative interconnectivity that you have in that space. Like, I find it magical. I mean, I really thought I would do this show once and that would do that. And then I did it as part of this festival, United Solo Festival, which is a big solo festival in New York City. And I sold out and I sold out and I sold out. So I got to do it for 3 nights, and which was cool. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just be done with it again. But it is the dialogue, it's the transformation you get to have in people's lives and the way they come up to you after and they tell you that, or they are crying when they see you, or the hug that they give you, you know, that is a very unique experience of being a creative person where you are creator and writer and performer and vehicle of the story and recipient of the response, like all in one thing. That is a deeply unique experience that I don't know. I mean, I think you have a lot of presence and charisma, so I think you should think about it, but not to push you out of something that you're already doing. But maybe there's the book form, and then maybe there's a short 25-minute form that helps to sell the book.
You're selling it to me. It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot for, you know. There's something with my creative brain that it doesn't take a lot for me to go, I can now see this. As we're talking, I'm getting a new vision. I'm getting a new wave of an idea of how this is transforming. You know, I'm so passionate about this podcast and hearing other people's stories. I don't want what I'm doing here now is not about me. You know, I call it the Martin Talk Show. You know, I have a bit of an ego. This is not. It's not. This space isn't about me. It's about my guests. But I think there is some deep desire in me to continue telling my story and to. Maybe it's within all of us, and I am seeing this now at the Edinburgh Fringe as we talk about
Yes, well then,
it.
when you bring it next year, I will come and be in your audience cheering you on.
Yeah.
But one more point on that is, I think, so I do a lot of work with. I have run a small community of people who have dual careers, so they have a more business, corporate to professional career, and they have a creative career that they give equal importance to. And I do this. We call them ampersands, and I have this identity. I find that a lot of the time we find ourselves doing things that are close to, but not the fulfillment of what our ultimate desire is. Meaning, hosting a podcast with creative people and allowing them to have a stage is awesome and so good. And, you know, I'm thankful to be on here. But it's also like one step removed from you being the guest on, you know, like from the reversal flip, the role reversal flip. And I think for most of my career, I have helped other people tell their stories. I have like worked in corporate communications, and I have been the like shadow version of the person doing the storytelling. And I was like, well, I don't ever want to do that. That's not my thing. And then being forced to step into that role and thinking, oh, no, you know what? I've probably always wanted to do the thing. And I just hadn't quite found my way into that. So I don't know, like, my friend dates a lot of actors, and I think it's because she really wants to be an actress, but she like
Right.
can't quite legitimize that for
Hmm.
herself. And I don't, to me, it's been part of the process is admitting that part of me at some times wants to be the person on stage,
Hmm.
and that is really okay too. It doesn't mean I don't also want to help other people be on stage and, be supportive of their
Yeah.
work. And I think that comes naturally from, being someone who likes to give and likes to help and like wants to support other people. But sometimes I want it to be my thing too in my
And
story.
and I think
Yeah.
it's okay for us to wear many different hats.
Yeah.
I think so, I think we've let society tell us that we have to be one thing, that we have to do just
Mm.
one job, but that's not human.
Oh,
That.
that's a human. Actually, there's this really interesting body of research about Nobel laureates, which is that the most
Mhm.
successful Nobel laureates are the most innovative, meaning their research is cited the most times. They have one thing in common, is that they have a primary career and then they have a secondary career or hobby that they treat with equal amount of professionalism. And the truth is, it's like way easier to become a Nobel Prize winning chemist because it's much easier to become published in chemistry journals than it is to
Mhm.
be a Nobel Prize winning poet because like 60% of papers, or I'm going to get it wrong, 40% of papers get accepted, 25% get accepted into peer reviewed journals, 0.05% of poetry gets accepted into poetry journals, right? And
Mm.
so our duality or our multiplicity of interests in our human in our full humaning is what makes us
Mhm.
innovative, interesting people, right? And I think when we try and just put one hat on, like for me, if I just wear my professional lady hat, I only feel like 70% of who I am. And if I am only a performer, only an artist, I also feel like not the entirety of who I am, right? And so I think it is about finding integration and intermingling of those identities. And it's about believing that the cultivation of those identities are going to be the thing that makes you uniquely you. And that in finding you that's uniquely you, part of you, that is where you really break through because you're doing a thing that no one else can do now, right? You are like
Mm.
fully being Martin or fully being Kirstina. And that is extraordinarily powerful. And I think the
Mhm.
truth is that we are just terrified of that amount of power, of what could happen if we are the 100% version of ourselves. I'm not saying you're
Um,
terrified. I'm probably
No,
terrified.
no,
People
no,
are
no, no, no.
terrified.
It's human to be fearful of oneself, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's natural. It's natural to be fearful of the unknown. I guess we're going into
mm,
here. We
yeah,
don't know, that we don't know what that all powerful version of ourselves looks like, and
right.
maybe that scares us.
Oh, well, it's
Have you?
terrifying, right? Because, like, what if you
So,
could have everything you want? What if?
yeah.
Like, that is something that I am deeply uncomfortable with, truthfully,
Mhm.
right? Like, what if you could have it all? Like, even saying that feels so uncomfortable to me because I was definitely not raised with that identity, right? I was raised in a family of six. I was raised to like keep the group happy. And so, because of that, I never really embraced that idea that like maybe I could have what I wanted, And
Yeah.
that's a scary thing. But
So
also,
how
like,
so
what would
how
it
are
be
you
like?
moving towards that then? How would you suggest that how would you suggest that
Oh,
I move further towards that all powerful version of myself?
I think it's about just pushing. I think for me at the moment, it's pushing all of the big dreams forward. Like for me, it's coming to Fringe. Like, okay, that's a month of time. That's in a different country. It's expensive. We rarely talk about how
Mhm.
expensive Fringe is, but it's extremely expensive to come and do
Yeah.
this. And I was very lucky. I got to home swap with some local people, but it's
Well.
expensive.
Hmm.
And just like giving it a shot. You know, I just bought this house in Maine recently, and it's a much bigger project than I wanted, but thinking about the act of renovation as an act of real creative practice and just like going for it and taking the risks and really going for it.
Mm,
And I think that I am now enough recovered from my brain injury to believe that I can go for it. And I think for a long time I was like terrified that I just like wanted to go for stuff that was crazy. And now I'm just like, oh, okay, let's just like take the big chances and fail or succeed and be comfortable in either way. But I talk about this a little bit in my show, and you said it earlier, is I think when you are like in your creative self, your whole self, sometimes you just know things, right? You just know something.
mm,
You know that it should be a book. Or uh, in this show, I talk about feeling called to do this big creative art project that I had that was very transformative. And I think believing in the knowing and believing in the call and not second guessing it. I think most of us
mm,
hear the call or we have the knowing or we have the idea and we just don't do it. And final point on this is um, so after my brain injury, the thing that was really transformative and healing for me was painting. And I had no impulse control after the brain injury happened. So I didn't have the filter from stopping something. So I was like, I want paints. And I went to a craft store and I just bought a whole cart full of oil paints, which are like the
mm.
hardest kind of paint. And I started painting. And after about 15 minutes, my headaches started to lessen. They were like there were lots of painful things, but I had almost crippling migraine-like headaches at all times. And then after an hour, my headache was gone. And it
Wow.
was wild. But then a couple of months later, a friend who I hadn't spoken to in a long time said, do you know that a couple months before your brain injury, you told me that you wanted to take painting classes and you never went and did it? And a part of me wonders if I had listened to that little inkling then, if I had taken painting classes, if I would have slowed down enough, processed really what I was doing and how I was acting and what I was going through, that I might have never had the accident. And I don't know. That's a question I don't
Mm,
know how to answer. But I think about that and I think about how many times in my life I have a little inclination to do something. And I'm just like, no, 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 no. And then all of a sudden that inclination becomes so overwhelming that either something bad happens or I just cannot ignore it anymore and I have to do it. And never
mm.
once have I felt that inclination, done the thing, and then regretted it. I think I have just regretted not doing it earlier.
Not listening, not listening to your, the
Hmm.
feeling that, they say listening to your gut
Yeah,
in all situations in life,
yeah.
is always right.
It
I,
is
I, I,
always right.
I do believe in a, I do believe in a higher power. I do believe
Hmm.
that there's more going on in this universe than we can possibly understand. And I do believe that I don't suppose you've read The Artist's Way, have you?
Oh, I love the artist way. I
Yeah.
actually have a partner, Amy St. Pierre. She's a member of this little community that I said I had of ampersands. And we have been doing the artist way together
Wow.
for a year. And what we've
Hmm.
been doing is sitting in each chapter for as long as we need to until we feel ready to get to the next chapter. And it's not the way we're supposed to do it, but I've done it a few times now. And it's been an extraordinarily powerful experience of just sitting in it with someone else
Mm.
who's also processing it. But so much of that book, which I'm sure is the point you were coming to, which wasn't my sidetrack about doing it with a friend, is about spirituality and getting in
Yeah.
touch with sort of a spiritual well and source. And I think I have an undergrad degree in religion. And
Hmm.
I am fascinated by religion and religiosity and spirituality and all of that. And I think that that is listening to the murmurs of the universe, you know,
Hmm.
and knowing when you are being called to do something on behalf of whatever's in the world. And I think so much of that is about acting is getting away from your ego and just like doing the work. Like to me, I had this fascinating experience because I had no impulse control after my brain injury, and I had no critical voice. And so because I had no critical voice, I just painted, even though my painting was terrible. But eventually my paintings became good, or what I value good, right? And so much of the time, like
Oh, the dogs are
sorry,
out.
that's my dog. So much of the time we let our critical voice or our busy voice stand in the way of what is valuable for us as artists. So that
Yeah.
that is my all. The more you can remove the critic, and the more you can remove the impulse dampening, is I think how we find our way to the work that we're supposed to make.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. Now, it sounds like you've got a party arriving at the moment.
I
We've
don't
gone
know
on. We've
what
gone
is
on with this.
going on.
Well, I want to
Dogs
ask
and
you.
people. Yes, yes.
I want to ask you one last question before I
Okay.
lose you today, Kirstina. I've got a big question that's a big part of my journey. That through doing this whole thing and through my experience that I had going to the other side and facing death myself, this is where now I know this question to ask people. This is where I know that I'm okay now. Now that I know this is part of the journey. So my question for you then, Kirstina, is how would you make this a better world?
Uh-huh. Oh. Um, I'm trying to do lots of things at the moment to make a better world. I think a lot of my show is about this idea that you are enough. And I think so many of us struggle to think that we aren't enough. And then all of that time buying the better lipstick or getting the Botox or, dieting or not saying the things that we think we need to say because we want people to like us. That is just wasted time where we could be doing awesome things in the world. And so, I guess I am trying to make work that I hope gives people more freedom to make more of their own work, that like frees other people up. And that I think is how we make change. Like that's how we make a beautiful world, is we give people space and belief, like we believe in them to be themselves, and that like just like telling people like the more parts of yourself you embrace, like that is beautiful. And then together, all of us being the powerful full versions of ourselves, like that is a world that I am so excited to live in. So yeah, I guess that a little bit of that, if I can convince 30 women or 30 men or 30 people, if one person who came to my show every day that I'm at Fringe could leave and think, gosh, that woman's pretty crazy. She did a lot of insane stuff, but like, oh, I can see myself in that. Maybe I can believe in myself before I almost die doing something dangerous. Like that those 30 people could go on to do something incredible. And that's
Yeah,
all.
you say 30, but you also touched on it there with the one, and there's so much power within the one.
Oh my gosh, I
You know,
hope more than one person
really.
comes to my show. It'll just be
Would
you in the
you,
audience.
no, I know
I'll
that's for
change
the
you.
No,
But yeah.
but for instance, in this conversation here, the way that you've changed things for me today in this conversation that we've had, the way that we can resonate just one on one is so powerful. and this thing of giving each other space to be free, to do our thing.
Yeah.
That would be such a beautiful world.
Wouldn't it be amazing if we all just felt like it would be totally okay for us to do our weird, strange things that just like brought us joy? And I think so much of the time we don't entertain that because we're so afraid of, I don't have time for painting, or I don't have time to take a storytelling class, or I don't have time to do this, or what if people laugh at me? And it's like, I don't want to laugh. I want to like cheer. I just want to like scream in support of people doing whatever it is like they want to do. You know, like I'm not into clowning, but if clowning is like what makes you happy, I want to sit in that audience and I want to like cheer so hard. And I think that's a beautiful thing about Fringe. I went last year as an audience member and I learned how important it was to be an audience member, and like really that is like a responsibility, and how awesome it feels to just go and cheer someone on. You know, like I did 37 shows in 5 days, and I'm just like so psyched to be there for the whole month of August, and to be like, just to go to other people's shows and see them do these strange, beautiful things and tell these wild stories, and to just be like, yes, like they did it.
This is how we unlock the freedom within each other. This is how we give each other the space. We go and support each other.
Yeah.
We go and cheer them on. We go and tell them well done.
Yeah, and if it's even if it's not well done, even if you don't, you know, but you laugh at the parts you laugh at, and you clap when it's over, and being there for other people as they are being themselves, like that's a huge gift that we can give people. Like and it's so easy. You sit in a dark theater for an hour, maybe 50 minutes, you know, and it means the world to other people. And anywhere we can do that, you know, cheering on a friend, buy a friend's painting, you know, go to their book launch, buy their book, like that's.
And I guarantee you, when you do that, it comes back.
Oh,
I guarantee when you give. Every time I give, it comes back in return twofold.
Yeah, because that's being human with each other. You know, that's supporting other people's expressions. And yeah, I'm American, so there are some people whose expressions at the moment I'm not totally aligned with, but that is why I try and extra double down on, you know, people who I think are expressing in service of supporting like a more beautiful world. And I guess, you know, there is some caveat to that, but the people who are making the world that you believe in, like, yeah, we should support them and give them everything we can. So
let's do it. Yeah. Let's go to the Fringe and let's go and see your show, Kirstina.
Yes. So well, I hope to see you there.
We will. You'll have to be on the podcast again in Edinburgh at the Fringe. I'm going to be doing the Edinburgh Fringe commentary.
Oh, awesome.
A daily podcast. So you'll have to come and
join
me.
Yeah, can I go to a taping of it?
Yeah, you're going to be a guest.
Oh, yeah, but I'll go to someone else's taping too. I'll be a mutual support. We can have a drink and have a taping. That's amazing.
Amazing. So where are we going to find you at the Fringe? Where are you
I'm at the Space UK, and the show's at 2 different times. It's at 11:30 for the first 2 weeks, and then it's at 5:30 or 6:30 for the third week. But I'll have to figure. I'll have to get that talking point. But the Space UK.
What I'll do is I'll make sure I add links into the bottom of this conversation. Wonderful, Kirstina. Thank you so much for sharing today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And if anyone has been watching or listening, we appreciate you for joining us. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.